All right, welcome back to AM Live. And as promised, I have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Chairman in studio with me this morning. Should I call you Dr. Bishop David Oginde? It's been what, 3 months?
No.
In the row?
Two.
2 months?
Yes.
How is it going so far?
So far,
or you're still good. In orientation?
You know, this role, you don't know whether you're going or coming. So when you say how well it is going, whatever that means. But so far it's good, yeah. Getting to know what is happening and what the commission is supposed to do and to do. You know, I knew it from the outside, now learning from the inside. And some of the information you get is very interesting. Yeah, so we are seeing how to deal with that.
So they've been bringing you up to speed?
Yes.
On where things are?
Yeah, both practically on the job, not sitting in the office being briefed, but actually doing the work. Okay. And in the process learning how things are. When
you say some of the information you're receiving is interesting,
yes.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, you know, when you are on the outside, we know what the media tells us, what you have gathered, put in the newspapers, on TV, on radio. That's all we depend on. But now when you're inside, you're getting raw data and raw information. And some of it can be very surprising, especially when you see the kind of things that people are doing, the kind of people who are involved. It can be very surprising, but with time you learn to put on shock absorbers and do the work. Yes.
Okay, before we get further into that, the weekly review yesterday spoke of a citadel of corruption. And it should be on the touch screen. Jackie is my director. She's on the other side of this earpiece.
Yes.
I just want to read what it states and get your thoughts on the same. There we go.
That's Meguna, was it?
Sorry, no, there it is. Citadel of corruption.
Yes, yes.
The weekly review. Let me just read out what it says on the front page there. Just quickly pulling it out on my phone, pulling it up on my phone. But here we go. Out of graft, civil servants and politicians have turned into overnight billionaires, owning massive properties and large shares in blue chip companies. In the last 8 months, major cases have collapsed, adding credence to an argument that the elite are unwilling to tame the vice. Adding credence to an argument that the elite are unwilling to tame the vice. Is it up to the elite, in your view?
There's a sense in which that is true. The levels, let me say, the way that people are engaging in corruption in this country is just astounding, I must say. Like you said there, within 8 months, we are already getting reports, and some have already been in public domain, of people who seem like all they were planning for is to get into government and get something for themselves. So you get the impression that some of the people who are appointed into public offices go in there with a very, very clear strategy in mind. And within a very short time, they are doing amazing things, amazing in the negative sense. And those are some of the things I'm saying are very shocking, because some of the plans that go into corrupt deals are so well thought out that you wonder, how can anybody think through this within such a short time? It means that it was something that was either pre-planned, so that it is just executed once they get into office. And that to me is a very surprising thing, because when people get into public office, our expectations as Kenyans is that you go in there to serve Kenyans, to help this country get where it ought to be. It is not for you to go in and get what you can while you can. So there's a sense in which that what you have just read is actually true. And very unfortunately so.
All right.
Yeah.
When you say in the last 8 months, right?
Yes.
Are you there for investigating persons in this administration?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So we have decided as a commission not to dramatize the fight against corruption, because I think we have seen too much drama and very little out of it. And so we have to take a different approach to this, and we are working towards a very systematic way of dealing with corruption. And so we may not see too much drama. We may not even hear much within the short term, but we want to go in a very systematic way so that we deal with this thing in a way that is long-lasting, is not short-term. So yes, both the former government, people within the former government and people within the current government, we are working on something on both.
On both?
Yes.
Yeah, the former with regard to before they exited office, they looted public coffers? We've had allegations to that effect from the highest officers in this land. It is not
a secret that corruption in this country has been with us for a while. In fact, our biggest challenge is capacity. If we had the capacity to be able to follow each and every incident of corruption, that would be the best, but we don't. So with the little capacity that we have and the little resources that are at our disposal, we have to be very strategic on how that is utilized. So we know that corruption is not a new thing. We can go all the way to Goldenberg in the early 90s, to Anglo Leasing in 2000s, to NYS and to so on and so on. Those are the big cases we know. But there are other cases that sometimes don't get into the public domain. So we have to decide what do we want to deal with. Our approach, as I said, is we want to be a little more systematic in the way we handle this. And so we've decided, let's go back the last 5 years coming forward. That includes the former government and the current government.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the last 5 years coming forward. So you're saying less drama, more systematic.
Right.
All right. And before we get into all like the challenges of capacity you're referencing, what exactly do you mean? What do you make of the events in the country today? As we sit here, there is turmoil. You have served as a clergyman, I suppose still serve as a clergyman. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on the situation.
The current drama, of course, is politics. And politics is not in our domain as EACC. That is in a different domain. NIC, DCI, and all, those are people who deal with criminal activities that may happen in the country. So we leave that to them. We deal with corruption and ethics and those kinds of things. So, but simply put, what is going on is politics. And politicians will always be politicians. It is unfortunate that they sacrifice the lives of Kenyans, innocent Kenyans, in the process. That is to be regretted and that is to be condemned. Okay.
2 scenarios. If I look at the Taifa Leo, you should have a copy on your table there.
Yeah.
It reads, polisi au magenge. Maafisa wa usalama watumia mbinu za kihuni kuangaisha wapinzani wa serikali, pia wakiuka sheria. So this is one position. The other, if it is indeed true that politicians are funding funding quote terrorist acts with a view to destabilize the government, either from the police, whether it's the police who are in the wrong or political leaders who are carrying out subversive activities. Are you saying EACC comes nowhere in there?
No, because our role, our mandate is to deal with issues that have to do with corrupt activities. Our mandate is to do with ethical conduct. So, and as far as there are breaches in those 2 areas, more specifically, it is within our mandate, and we'll do what we can. You remember recently there was a member of parliament who attacked a
Kenya Power
official, and EACC came in because that is unethical conduct. So those kinds of things we will deal with. But when it comes to political activities, criminal behavior, that is not in our mandate. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of the time we focus on the anti-corruption aspect.
Yes.
Of things, right?
Yes,
Deterring corruption. I know you go into counties and say these are the potential. These are the loopholes you need to seal to avoid loss of public funds.
Yes.
And we see people taken to court, you know. But we don't really say much about the ethical side of things. Tell us, in terms of the ethics, part of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
Right.
Where does your mandate begin and end?
In the ethics, we especially focused on education, creating awareness, transforming the culture of Kenyans to be more value-based, value-driven. Because when you look at corruption in our country, it has become a culture. There are many Kenyans who are involved in corruption, not because they want to be corrupt, but because they believe that that's the only way to do things. I'm talking about the ordinary citizen. So that when a Kenyan goes into a government office, the first thing they are thinking of is, who do I know there? What can I do to speed up the process of my services, and so on and so forth. That is what has been ingrained in our minds. And so there are people who will corrupt a public officer, not because it is necessary, but because they think that's the only way they can receive services. So how do we transform that? We need then to bring in education. We need to educate people that government services are to be offered for free. You have already paid for them through your taxes. We need to let people know that that which you are doing is actually wrong, because there are people who don't even think it is wrong. It is just facilitating a process. So on the ethics side, we are more focused in education, and we have a whole directorate that deals with public awareness, education, helping people to appreciate and understand the value of integrity, the value of values, the whole issue of Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Those are part of what we do on the ethics side. But you see, when people hear of EACC, the only thing they think is corruption. Fight this vice, you know, the battle, you know, it is a war that we are looking at. But there's a whole side that is to deal with just raising people of value. So our Department for Education is actually engaged in a lot of programs and activities that mostly don't even get into the media. For example, we are into schools, colleges, raising up what we call the integrity clubs, that helping young people to begin to appreciate that integrity is a valuable thing and can help this nation move forward.
Do you think Kenyans do not know that they're meant to? I mean, I would imagine, we're all aware, most of us, let me put it that way, that you should receive government services, whatever, apart from the ones you need to pay for, you know, the licenses and all of that. You shouldn't have to part with a bribe. People know, but it's a cost of doing business. No. That's exactly what you have said is what we are fighting against. When you say it is cost of business, so there's something that we call budgeted corruption. So that if you are putting in a tender, you even budget in there some money that will go to officials so that you get this tender. The other side is true. When they are putting out the tender, they have already budgeted in a portion for themselves. That is illegal. That is unethical. That is criminal. And those are the things that we want to help Kenyans know. Knowing and doing are two different things. How many people know that alcohol is bad for you? But they drink. So knowing and doing are not the same thing. So my question to you then would be,
yes,
but by telling me that I may know, like you've said,
yes,
like correctly, that yes, drinking is bad for me.
Yes.
And yet I still drink.
And that's why we keep reminding you and bring this information to you so that one day, it may reach, when you begin to possibly see the effects of it in your body, you may remember that I was told this thing is bad and change. And there are people who change. What we want to do is get to the Kenyans in a way that they get to that place where they refuse to engage in corrupt deals. Why is it that there are nations in this world where the same individuals like you and I don't engage in corruption? What is it that they do, or what is it that they did? It is that education, that bringing up people in with a mindset that doing right is the right thing to do. And these other things that we engage in just undermine our livelihood. For example, one of the things that I have said before, not just because when I'm in EACC, even before, is that we have not linked our problems. Right now, what are the demonstrations all about?
Cost of living.
Cost of living. Now, if you consider what has been told to us, that up to 30% of our budget goes into corruption, that is in public domain. What does that mean? In the 3.6 trillion budget, 1.2 trillion is going to go into private pockets. What if that money was channeled into the government projects and programs? It means that our cost of living would be much better. But we don't put that link. So we still go ahead and do things that undermine our very livelihoods, and yet complain that the economy is bad. Why is the economy bad? Why can't we refuse these thieves who steal our resources from stealing our resources? Instead of queuing behind them or in front of them to give us little handouts of what they have stolen from our coffers. That is the kind of mindset that Kenyans really should have. That the 200 shillings that you are being given, the 500 shillings, the 1,000 or whatever it is you are being given, is actually your money that has been stolen from you.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, it's easy for maybe you and I to turn down that 1,000. But if my children are crying from hunger, that's an entirely different story.
Yes.
Is this not a poverty issue?
It is not a poverty. It's a created poverty issue. Why are your children crying out for because of hunger? Is because the money you would have got from your farming has been taken by somebody. So that you find that the farmer works so hard in their farm to produce crops, which then rot in the farm while the big guy is importing the same crop. And so your hard work goes into waste because somebody else has circumvented the process. If we can stop these people from doing that, then you will get the money to take your children to school and to feed them. Those are the connections that Kenyans don't seem to be having.
But in the meantime, I still need to feed them.
That meantime is what we want to stop. Because then it is a vicious cycle that will keep going on. As long as you're saying, it's just today. That's how, going back to the drunkards and people who drink, they'll say, I'll just drink today only. Tomorrow I'll stop. Tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow never comes. So the next time they're in the trenches, they are being rained on and they wake up there, they are brought back home and they say, I'll stop tomorrow. Just allow me. I have such a serious hangover. I need just a little to cure myself. That is, we are intoxicated by corruption. And that's where the education comes in. We must refuse these kinds of shenanigans that are going on in our country if we are going to move somewhere. Where corruption has been dealt with, it has been painful. The whole thing of tribalization of corruption, politicization of corruption, weaponization of corruption, those are things that keep this country going around in circles. And those are the things that we must cut off at some point, so that then we begin to move forward.
Okay. When I look at the Constitution,
yeah,
and part of what, when people are taking the oath of office, they take an oath not to bring disrepute to public offices.
Right.
And yet they do daily. You referenced, although the gentleman has denied the electric slap, you know?
Electric slap.
And the certain posts that are made by those who hold the highest office in this land.
Yes.
Does EACC, is that an NCIC issue? Does EACC come in anywhere there, or must I steal money or carry out fraud?
No, because ethical conduct, value-based conduct, those are things that are within our mandate as EACC. But we must remember that we are one government. We are not 6 governments. We are not 10 governments. We are only one government. And so there is a need for us to work collaboratively. Like I said earlier, because of our capacities, we have to be strategic in the things that we handle. We receive thousands of complaints daily from all over the country. Oh, somebody did this. I remember one of the things that I was telling you that I got stunned when I got in, is that I received this complaint from somebody somewhere in the villages of this country who was very distraught because a chief had demanded and taken 1,000 from him for whatever reasons. And he was very distraught. So wrote a very strong email to us to say, please deal with this situation. 2 weeks later, before we had responded, they wrote a reminder that no action has been taken against this person who took away my 1,000 shillings. On the other hand, I'm going into a meeting to deal with a case where somebody is, we are talking about 50 billion shillings that has been, embezzled. So that is the range that you are dealing with. We don't have capacity to deal with all these things. That's why we have to bring all agencies and more so Kenyans themselves. This war is not going to be won by EACC. This war is going to be won by us as Kenyans refusing to participate and collaborate with thieves that steal from our country. That is how it is going to be won. So when we talk about those various conducts and misdemeanors and so on, yes, we will do what we can, that which is within our mandate, and we are doing that. But there are other agencies, like you have said, NCIC, which is mandated to deal with especially communication, how we talk with each other, the kind of ethnic conduct that we have, and so on and so forth. They have that mandate, and so we will allow them to do that as we work collaboratively together with them. DCI is supposed to deal with issues of criminal activities, and so they are supposed to handle anything that is of a criminal nature. For us, we are dealing with economic crimes, we are dealing with fraud, we are dealing with corrupt behavior, we are dealing with unethical conduct, and so on. So we cannot take everything into our hands. We want to see how we work collaboratively with various agencies.
Okay.
Yes.
Working collaboratively with various agencies. Picking up from that.
Yes.
If I look back,
yes.
At that front page, weekly review, Citadel of Corruption.
Of corruption, yes.
That those who you would expect to better our lives, we have elected to better our lives,
yes,
are the same ones who are stealing from us, essentially is what it states, right? These are the same people who are allocating these resources to enhance this capacity to deal with corruption. And you have, as you have agreed, if there is no goodwill, then it undermines the fight against corruption. What do you say to those who view these commissions merely as an extension of the executive?
That is a perception of many Kenyans, and rightly or wrongly. You see, that's why I said we don't have 6 governments or 10 governments. We have only one government with different branches. And there are levels to which we have to collaborate, and there are levels to which we have to be independent in our activities. We cannot operate in silos where each person is doing their own thing. Then it will be a waste of resources. So there are situations where we have to collaborate with certain departments and agencies of government, and sometimes Kenyans, when they see those kinds of collaborations, those kinds of networks, they think now you have been co-opted into this particular department of government. That is not true. We remain independent and focused on our mandate, and that's why you will find that we deal with whoever it is that has breached the law in whichever place that they are. But at the same time, for example, we have to collaborate with Parliament in lawmaking. That is a fact, because they're the ones who make the laws, and we have meetings with them, and we put forward the kind of legislation that would facilitate our work. But at the same time, when we find parliamentarians breaching the law, then we go for them. So that is how it works. We have to collaborate with the judiciary in how they conduct their work in terms of our cases, not to influence them, but to just see how do we fight this battle together. But if a judge is caught in corrupt practice, we go for them. So this is how government really works, because we have only one government, and we cannot say now we have no discussion with Parliament, we have no discussion with the executive, we have no discussion with the judiciary because we are independent, we are policing. No, it can't work that way. So there are areas in which we have to collaborate, but then when there are breaches, we have to go for them.
Although where a judge is concerned, would that not fall under the remit of the Judicial Service Commission, I imagine?
What do you mean?
A judge, if a judge is implicated in corruption, that would fall under JSC.
No, but we are Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So whether it is a judge or it is a cabinet minister or a member of Parliament,
or a chief,
or a chief, or a governor, MCA, all of them, all these people are public officers, they are state officers. So there is no, there's no area where we are restricted from going. Yeah.
A sticking point has been this whole wealth declaration, because when you started this conversation, you said you were astounded that people come into public office to become billionaires, right? So what of this mechanism of, because the wealth declaration is meant to guard against that, you say this is what I have come into the job with, and I can, and by the time I'm exiting the job, or even as I am in the job, I can explain that this is my income, and therefore this explains this and this enhancement to my wealth.
Yes.
Does it work?
Does it work? Yes, it does. Yes, we want to make it work better. Yeah. That's why I said at the beginning, is that we are trying to see how we can change strategy in dealing with this whole vice. So among the things we'd want to do is exactly that, so that people explain how they make their money. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how could it work better?
I don't know that I want to share with you that before the time has come. Yes.
But is it's something
you don't tell the rat that I've put a trap here for you. Yes.
All
So,
right.
but that's an area we want to work on. Yes. But in a very systematic way. So, yeah.
Okay. The other sticking point that is usually there, especially around election time.
Yes.
EACC will say, will give a list, blacklist. They call it? I mean, in the media,
The
will
blacklist.
refer the blacklist.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
That you find that these people are under suspicion or investigations are not suited to pursuing public office.
Yes.
IEBC will in turn respond that the courts have declared that a person, unless a person has exhausted, is found guilty and has exhausted all mechanisms of appeal, that is at the point at which we can stop somebody from contesting an election. Are you looking at are you making any legislative proposals in that regard?
Yes, because actually that is in our law. It is not IEBC that is saying it. It is actually in the law that you can be convicted at a magistrate's court and even sentenced, but you can appeal to the High Court. You can appeal to the Court of Appeal, and you can go all the way up to Supreme Court. And until...
As was the case with Mike Sonko, for instance.
Yes.
Case in point.
Yes. So until you have exhausted that, our laws say that you are still innocent. Now, I remember the Chief Justice some time back actually said that if you have been convicted at any stage in that legal process, you stand convicted until you are proved otherwise. That is how the law should be. But we have put in our own legal structures that is not how it should be. So I wondered whether that cannot be clarified in the way that the Chief Justice mentioned it, because that is what makes sense. That if you have been convicted, you stand convicted until your appeal reverses. Before you are convicted, indeed, you are innocent until proved guilty. Now, the court has found you guilty. So now you stand guilty until the next stage proves otherwise. That is how the law should be, but that is not what is written. So if we can change our legal framework, because I must say that the way we have structured our legal framework is such that it is a whole process, and that's why cases go for 10 years. Because by the time you go through all these stages, it is 10, 15 years. Just partly because of the backlog, the inefficiencies in the system, and of course the kind of things that an accused person will do in order for the case not to proceed as quickly as it would otherwise. So unfortunately, that is where we find ourselves. Okay.
When you're talking about education, right? Because the ethical bit of things,
yes.
Are you getting them when they're young, in their formative years? You know, is this something that is in the school curriculum?
This is something that is the school curriculum, and this is something that we are pursuing at that level. That's why I said we are working with schools, school children, primary school, secondary school, all the way to university, that we can raise a new generation that thinks differently. That is our greatest hope. So if we were to put our efforts in raising that new generation, we may not see the results immediately, but in the long run, we will reap the benefits. So we are in that long-term strategy to get our children to learn the benefits of integrity, of values, and how that benefits the country and benefits them at an individual or family level.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take you back to the courts now, right? And several issues arise.
Yes.
You've talked about cases that take 10 years.
Yes.
When you look at the Anglo-leasing case, that's been more than 10 years.
Oh, yes. It's 20.
And
Actually,
cases,
it's exactly 20 years.
And often the country will be held in limbo for this duration of time, and nothing comes out of it.
Yeah, it's true.
Are there what remedies remedial measures is EACC championing in this regard? Because I don't know whether are you part of the National Council on Administration of Justice?
Yes, we are supposed to be. Now, I think it boils back to two things. The first one is the legal framework. Mm-hmm. The second one is just our willingness to deal with corruption. And I say that for all of us as Kenyans. Because the legal framework is that the threshold that we have put for ourselves within our laws, the Constitution and the legal, the laws themselves, for proving that someone has engaged in corruption is so high. And I said this even during our vetting process, such that it almost becomes impossible to convict a person of corruption. You may be aware that the so-called Chicken Gate scandal.
Yes.
The people who are supposed to have participated or colluded with Kenyans in that scandal were convicted in the UK. Mm-hmm. Served 3 years term, they have finished their term. In Kenya, they were acquitted. Everybody who was arrested in regard to that scandal were acquitted. So nobody has ever been convicted. Mm-hmm. And now that speaks to our legal processes, the way we handle cases. It's a very frustrating experience. So that is why you find that cases take so long. Sometimes they are deliberately delayed, deliberately adjourned. Mm. We go for technicalities rather than the actual spirit of the law. Mm. And all those are just meant to scatter this whole fight against corruption. We as Kenyans need to know that this thing, if we don't do anything about it, it is going to destroy our nation. We talk about corruption now as if it is just one of those things we do, or it is part of our life, and it is just something, This thing is serious. It can bring us down. It has brought down nations. So I would pray and hope that Kenyans, the smallest of us to the biggest of us, if there are such people, can take this thing more seriously and realize that if we tackle this thing called corruption, all of us will be better, not worse. Mm. Even those people who want to make money will find a better environment to make money, and a lot of it legitimately. Are we together? So without that resolve within us, we will still find Goldenberg come and go, Anglo-Leasing come and go, NYS come and go, KEMSA come and go, because we are just not willing as a society to deal with this whole thing. Mm. And I would not just blame the big guys who are involved, because these people are the ones we elect, these people are the ones we appoint, these people are the ones we put in office, and we are very happy because they give us some little handouts. Yeah.
Okay.
Which you said you need to take your child to school.
All right, so we'll take a break. But when we come back, several issues. You've mentioned Chicken Gate, and I was like, somehow we managed to hold a chicken thief accountable. So I may as well steal billions so that I can afford high-fluting lawyers who can drag out the process in court. So witnesses get tired, forget, and I walk away at the end of the day. But we continue with that conversation.
That's why we have to change strategy.
We'll get into that strategy on the other side of this break.
message ya I love you. Kwa sababu kila mtu in the contact list ni demu wake. Mwanaume ni mtu ambaye.
To get Mwanaume ni Nani as your Skiza tune, dial star 812 star 798 hash.
Skiza, non-nation.
Please welcome our brilliant neurosurgeon, our superstar, Anastasia Streletsky. A round of applause for her, please. Who operated on him?
Does it really matter which doctor arrived?
Yes, it does. Do you realize you're in trouble now?
Mikhailo Vladenko and your other relatives must be happy to know that you're back in the city right now. Vasily is back in the city. Your brother is now the chief of the crime investigation unit.
Stop!
It means the end for me and my business.
He wouldn't dare.
Hands up!
Come on, it's all over. Let's go.
I'm sorry. But it's my wedding. I'm getting married.
We made a mistake.
She will change.
It's more likely she'll change you.
As a mother, I have to do my duties in the house. It forces me to send her to the river because I have no alternative.
Piaora ok ber, ler bedo ok ler. Otuo nikech piaora. Otuo ok odhi skul, japuonj chunye chandore.
If children had water close by, they won't be sick, they won't be distracted because the water is clean.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. We are addressing issues of corruption. How do we get out of the citadel of corruption, as was described by the weekly review? And you're saying we need to change strategy. You know, you are saying that on the other side of the break, because for many people, they will tell you, fadhali uibe billions, kuliko uibe kuku, ukiiba kuku, you go to prison, right? For I don't know how many years. You steal billions, and you're able to use your money to stay out of prison. How do we change strategy?
I already said that we're changing strategy, details of which I said.
So you don't want to divulge too much?
Too much at this point. Because what you have said is true. It's actually true. The truth of it, part of it is not just because the big people use their monies, but most of the people who engage in high-level corruption, first of all, they are not poor people. Secondly, they are highly placed. Thirdly, they are very well educated. So the very way the whole thing is planned and executed, it will take you a while to unravel it. And those are some of the things I was saying when I came into the commission. I was just amazed because we have a very good team at the commission. I must confess, and maybe I'll discover some dark corners later, but as of now, I can say we have a very good team. And I've sat in presentations where we are considering a case, some of these big cases, and just the presentation of how this thing was planned and executed, you feel like you're watching a movie. It is very, very carefully thought through. It is well executed. So it will take you a long time to unravel and put together a case that can stand in court. That's why you don't hear many of these things happening. Now, the person who has stolen a cuckoo, you don't need much to prove that. You know, the chicken is lost. We have traced the person with it. It is a straightforward, open and close case. So that's why it appears like these people, the smaller fries, as we call them, are convicted much faster and so on and so forth. It gives that impression. It's not because the others are avoided. It's because it takes quite a bit of time and resources to unravel a big-time corruption. Those people are in business. I have come to almost believe that they even hire professionals to just plan this thing. So somebody thinks there are some billions we can get from here. How do you think we can go about it? And they sit down and strategize. So now when EACC or whichever government agency is trying to unravel that, you have work to do. And it takes a while. So by the time you are through with that process, then take it to the next level that also needs to, by the time it's taken to court to be argued out and so on, it takes a while. So that is why there is an impression that the small fries are fried faster than the small one, the big guys, which is true even with fish. Omena is easy to cook. Okay. Big fish takes a while.
Because, I mean, I look at some of the people who get implicated in these things. Kemsa, you know, God, I prayed and God, you know, or I was just walking past Kemsa and, you know, the biggest win tenders, or even NYS, you know, you wonder who are these people? And I had, like, where did they come from and how did they hear of these tenders? And many times they're patsies, and so they're put there, but they're bigger players behind the scenes. But even with regard to that, there have been accusations that some of these cases are brought to settle political scores, or as a
that's what we call weaponization,
or a means of extortion. Yes,
yes, that is true, and that is part of the challenge that we face as a nation, because part of the reason that our laws are the way they are, that you have to almost exhaust the whole system, is because of that, that we can plant on you that you did that, you stole that, you did the other, take you to court, get a relevant judge or magistrate to convict you, when all along there was nothing. But it's just to get you out of the way so that we take your position. By the time you argue your case, we will have done what we needed to do. That's what we are calling weaponization of corruption. So that is on the one end. How do you prevent an innocent person or protect an innocent person from being falsely accused, framed up, convicted to pay for whatever they did, something that they never did? Then on the other end, people also use then that loophole to get out of the dragnet, because this process will go on forever and ever while they enjoy their loot. So that is the challenge that we face on getting a balance where we can deal with the real thieves and allow the innocent person not to be victimized. It's a dilemma that we have in our country. Yeah, because in some places where there's nothing like that, if then you are suspected to have been involved in a corrupt practice, we simply ask you to step aside while the investigations are done, and if you are proved innocent, then you can get back to your job. Now, if some people...
But if some of these cases take up to 10 years?
That's the problem. That's why I'm saying it is a vicious cycle, because there are all those things that you will be in the cold for 10 years then. Do you see? So how do we balance that? We have to see how to do that so that the people who are truly corrupt and engaged in evil are not allowed to enjoy the benefits of their corruption. And the people who are innocent are not punished for things that they never did. That is what we must work on.
You know, earlier when you were speaking, you said, why is it that other people in other countries don't condone corruption and we do, right?
Yes.
Like we have this culture of corruption. Is it because we're using a Western definition? let me play a devil's advocate of corruption. You know, it is Western. Is it because you talked about budgeted corruption? Then do we not just now bring it to the open and say, okay, 30% kickbacks? Nothing beyond that.
Yeah, if Kenyans choose to do that, then yes, let's do that. But we have to then face the consequences. Because the consequences is that the cost of doing business gets much higher. A road that would have cost us 1 billion will cost us 1.3 if you add the 30%. And that translates to everything. Once we agree with that, and that is where we are, by the way, as now, because everything is inflated. So what we are paying for is much higher than what it should actually be because of the cost of corruption. So I agree with you. If that is what we as Kenyans want, then yes, some people have said, let's legalize corruption. But you must also have that connection that it will cost us so much more. The cost of living will go much higher because it is the clever, it's the crafty who are going to benefit, not you and I. Well, I don't know about you, but not I.
Bishop!
No, you see, I could be putting in a league where you are not. So that is what is going to happen. So the cost of living in this country is going to go through the roof. Let me, I don't know where you were at that time. Before Goldenberg, it was even printed in books that the Kenya shilling is $16. The dollar is 16 Kenya shillings. Mm-hmm. It was printed in books because it never changed. For years, it was at 16 shillings. So we could even print it in textbooks, that the rate of exchange of $1 is 16 Kenya shillings. Mm-hmm. Come Goldenberg in 1990-91, it moved to 18 shillings, to 20 shillings. It went to 80 shillings within less than a year. That is what corruption does. It has never come down. It is just going up. That's what the cost of corruption. So yes, legalize it, but very soon, 400 shillings to the dollar. It has happened in other countries where people carry money with wheelbarrows. You have, I'm sure you have, you are a journalist, so you know what happens in some of our African countries, some other Asian countries, some European countries, where the thing just bursts. That is the cost of corruption. Legalize it, yes, but be ready for the consequences.
How do we reconcile? Because you've raised the cultural aspect, right? How do we reconcile? If I come from a community of raiders, we raid, you know, we take somebody else's and it becomes ours.
Yes.
And I get into public office and I say, see, I raid. Are there usually, like, is there a dissonance between some cultural beliefs and practices and what we as a nation are saying, these are our values?
What is happening in Pokot? Do you think it's a good thing? We should let them continue?
No.
But it is culture. So they go, they raid, and the other ones come, they raid. Is that the life we want to live?
But if this is how I was raised and this is how I was brought up.
That is how you are raised. I don't think that that's how you are raised. Or there is nowhere in the world where stealing is a good thing. Even the raiders, they are followed. Why are they followed? Why don't we just say, they came, they raided? That's okay. They are followed. People kill one another. Bows and arrows. Now they have gone into bundukis. Why? Because they know it is wrong. Even in the house, it is known you don't go to the fridge and take that which was planned for our lunch. It is known. Your siblings will rise up against you. Why are they rising against you? Because within us there is that conscience that tells us this is wrong. We can pretend, we can give it other names, but we know it. It is wrong. Even when you are stealing, you know it is wrong. So there is nowhere where stealing is okay, that you can say our culture is for stealing or our culture is for this and that. No, 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 no. Even when it is done, they know it is wrong. That's why they follow one another with bows and arrows. Yeah.
And what do you make of this? It is our thief. Leave our thief to us. Yes. Previously when I've covered high-profile individuals coming to the EACC to record statements, they don't come alone. They come
with singers and dancers.
Yes, with a contingent. And you will say, and you'll hear people say, this is our thief.
Yes.
Yes. Leave our thief to us.
And those are the same people who come to EACC and say, our thief has stolen from us. Our roads are not being done. Our water is not flowing. Our schools have no equipment. Our hospitals and dispensaries have no medicine. Because your thief has stolen from you. And I said it earlier. These are connections that we don't make. We don't make. And this is where our education needs to help Kenyans to connect that what your thief has stolen is what should have brought medicine in your dispensary. What your thief has stolen is what would have brought teachers to your school. What your thief has stolen is what would have built the roads in your area. We have to make those connections because we are so disconnected that we celebrate our thief, but we complain about our roads. We celebrate our thief, but we complain about lack of medicine in our dispensaries. We celebrate our thief, but we don't have teachers in our schools. We don't make this connection that if this thief was dealt with, we would have money to put textbooks in our schools, to build the roads in our neighborhood, to put medicine in our dispensaries. That is a connection. That's where our education needs to happen, to help people see the dotted lines.
You said there's a disconnect in our perception.
Is a big disconnect. Because this person steals 1 billion and comes and gives you 500 shillings. And then you celebrate him as a great guy that should be taken to parliament or taken to MCA or taken to governor or wherever. What you don't know is that that billion could have put a lot of medicine in your hospital. Could have employed 10 teachers in your school. Could have built a kilometer of your road. Those are connections that can only come through education and awareness.
But question is to you, why take up this job if you're fighting a losing battle? Because, okay, so let me explain why I'm saying that.
Yes.
Let me explain why I'm saying that. This electorate are the same ones who wake up at 4 in the morning to go line up outside the polling station to elect their thief. So you leave them to their thief?
We won't leave them to their thief because if we go back to talking about cost of living, we have seen nations. You do remember the Arab Spring. Why did the Arab Spring come about? Cost of living. Because when people are hungry.
Same in Sudan.
Same in Sudan. When people are hungry, and they say a hungry man is an angry man, it can bring social revolution, upheavals. The nation can become ungovernable. So you cannot throw up your hands. It's like saying in your house, go to the fridge and pick whatever you want. And then you have gone to the market, supermarket, because you have visitors the following day. You bought all that you needed. You put in the fridge. And then in the morning, now you go to prepare food for your visitors, only to find the fridge empty. Because you had let loose your children. Whatever you want, just take whatever time. They wake up at midnight, they go pick something. What do? You go back to the market? If you are a rich guy, yes. But even that, you will get to the place where you have to call a kamkunji in your house. Thou shalt not go into the fridge except at the appointed times and to pick the appointed things. Otherwise, your house will collapse. It will collapse because your visitors are arriving, your money is gone, but the little tweets have taken everything and privatized it. That is what, multiply that into the national scene. That's where we'll end up. We will end up with a nation that is banana. Yeah.
You have been a man who has been on the pulpit for over a decade. How many years?
30.
30
yes.
years. We are told that over 80% of Kenyans are faithful.
Faithful what?
Whether they are Christians or profess our faith.
Yes.
Let me put it that way.
Yes.
Over 80% of Kenyans
yes.
also have been told profess a faith.
Yes.
They come to your church.
Yes.
They sit. They listen. You tell them the Bible says thou shalt not steal. Now in this capacity as chairman of EACC, what do you hope to achieve that you did not in 30 years on the pulpit?
The other side, I tell them thou shalt not steal, and we train them on values. This side, we now deal with them. Yeah. If thou stealeth, thou shalt go to jail. Yeah. You'll face the consequences. Yes.
So, which brings me up to the point of why take on this? This has been a thorn in the side of Kenya for decades. Why take on this? What should I call it? Monster. Why not settle peacefully? You know, farm your nini.
Farm what, my friend?
Your mindy, I don't know.
And then it is stolen. It is a fruitless exercise. And I've said this before, I don't believe that I am the one person who is going to finish corruption in this country. I have not deceived myself. Yes, because the realities are there before us. But I want to play my part in the smallest way possible to reduce corruption in this country. Even if it is by just 1 millimeter, that will be 1 millimeter gained. That's where I am. So I'm not deceiving myself that if I stay for my 6 years, that in those 6 years, Kenya will be a corruption-free country. I have not deceived myself in that way. But in that period of time, I want to do my very best with all that God has given me to reduce corruption in this country, to change the way we look at corruption and deal with corrupt people. That is the driving force. This is a relay race. Somebody will come after me and hopefully take it to the next level. And even those nations that are perceived to be less corrupt, they had a journey. And this is the journey we must walk, slowly but surely. That's why I said, for me, I'm not for drama. Oh, people, it dies like a flame. But I would like us to put in place systems, structures, processes that begin to make corruption difficult, unprofitable, and so on and so forth, while at the same time helping Kenyans to appreciate that this thing is not good for us. So if that I can do within the short time that I have, I will have done my part. And that's what I want to do. So no matter how little, we have to chip at this. I was in South Africa, and I had opportunity to go down a tunnel where they dig for gold. You go into the heart of the earth. Actually, there's a lift to take you down there. I don't know what distance we went, perhaps a kilometer, into the heart of the earth. And then we find where these people dig for gold. And they were explaining to us, they have this container that carries out the rock they have chipped away, shifts it up. It carries 1 ton of rock. And they say in that 1 ton of rock, they get a few grams of gold. A few grams, not a kilo. That's why gold is expensive. But there are people who are determined to go down there, dig that rock, and they know they are only going to get a few grams of gold. But it doesn't stop them. I am willing to hack this rock for a few grams of integrity in this country. One day, this battle will be won. That is where I am.
But given you've just started in the job, so to speak, right?
Yes.
Ukipata simu, no number, private, or even a number, maybe yakina Jose Kamago, I'm just joking, but you know, a number that is not Kenyan, and then somebody tells you, my friend, go slow. Will you go slow?
I will not go slow. I'll ask them why. I'll ask them why. Why go slow? Why go slow? So that corruption can continue? I'm actually not willing to go slow. I can say that publicly, whatever it costs. Because, let me tell you, this is not the first time I'm talking about corruption. Corruption has been something that has pained my heart for a very long time. I have said this in every place. I know talk is cheap, and that's where I have been. On the talking side. Now I'm on the doing side. And as I have said, I'll just repeat it again. I want to do whatever I can with the resources that I have, with the energies that I have, with the wisdom that God has given me to minimize this thing. If we cover a kilometer, I will say amen. If we cover only a few millimeters, I'll still say amen. Because those are few millimeters gained. But Kenyans must not surrender to the thieves of this country. We cannot surrender. And I'm not going to be one of those people who will surrender to that. So if I receive that call, it will only show me that we are working. We are being effective. You don't get those calls if you are not effective. So to me, that will be a positive thing. That will show us that I think we are now touching in the right places.
Your predecessor, Archbishop Eliud Wabukala,
yes.
yourself, what does it say to you? Like, we are relegating, and I use relegating lightly, you know, the role of chairman of EACC to men of the cloth. Does it say to you that Kenyans have lost faith in the fight against corruption?
No, it tells me that Kenyans are becoming more serious on the fight against, and they are looking for whoever it is who seems like they can do something. And so if they have more faith in the men of the cloth, so be it. But I don't think whether Archbishop or myself came into this space simply because we are men of the cloth. This was a process that involved many Kenyans who felt like I did that we could do something. So it's the result of a process. We were not voted into office, where you can say Kenyans voted for the man of the cloth, you know. It was a process. So if that process after me brings another clergyman, why not? If after me the process brings a different person, what we are looking for is Kenyans who are serious about the fight against corruption, whoever that person is in this country. If today I learned that there is a person who is more serious than I am, and they are willing to fight this thing better than I would step down for them. Because I'm not looking for a job, and I've said this before. I didn't get into this because I needed money or because I wanted a job. Far from it. So if there is someone, perhaps you know someone who can do this better than I can, I will gladly step down for them.
Maybe, perhaps it's because we view men of the cloth as incorruptible. But then you're a very forgiving Lord. And you know, these are situations, in some situations, vengeance is required. Do you have the mettle?
You know, I am a Christian, I'm a preacher of Christianity and the faith. Mm-hmm. I don't know where you stand yourself, but the person we follow, called Jesus Christ, when he came to Jerusalem and he went to the temple, his first action was to fight corruption. The famous turning of tables. That was a fight against corruption. That was Jesus himself. So when he came to he found they had turned this place into a marketplace. They were selling things that were supposed to be for sacrifices and so on and so forth. He turned the tables on them. That was fight against corruption. So I'm just following in his footsteps. Was he forgiving? Yes, he forgives. Zacchaeus was forgiven. Yeah. But he returned the things he had stolen. So we won't forgive you and you go and enjoy the things that you have stolen from us. Yeah. You will return the things you have stolen. But if you are willing, because once you are forgiven and you are genuinely converted, it means that then you will join the fight. Yeah. So that I'm happy about.
Okay, which brings me to the point of plea bargaining.
Yes.
Somebody whispered in my ear, somebody from the commission, that your strategic plan, the current strategic plans, expires, yes, here we go, lapsed on the 30th of June. Where are we with the next 2018, 2019, 5 years?
24th, 2023, 2028. Yes, we have actually just finalized that. We'll be launching it in just a week or two. Yes.
All right. And what what provisions do you make in there for plea bargaining? Because it's been argued as long as we get our money, like we can negotiate.
Plea bargaining is especially in asset recovery, where we have found that you have more than what you ought to have, or you had taken what should not have been yours. And say, for example, land. You took land that was not yours. In the process, perhaps you have developed something on it. So there's something that you have put in it. Now, we would go through a court process to take this back. Normally what we would do is we would also want you to pay for the time that you have enjoyed this resource. And so the plea bargaining is that you can say, instead of us going through this whole process, I'm willing to do this. And that's what Zacchaeus, if I remind you of the Bible, did. I'm willing to give this up, provided you then let me, not go through this process and so on. See, we see whether it is a reasonable thing. So we are not allowing you to enjoy the proceeds of your theft, of your evil. But we are saying, instead of all of us dragging this thing through court forever, if you are saying it is true, this happened, and you are willing to give it back and so on, then we sort it out outside of court. It's part of the ADR that is now within our laws.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, winding up, for those who have lost faith in the institution, that is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
Yes.
What do you have to say to them?
All that I have said, I hope, has revived somebody's faith. Yes. But I would tell them, I do not blame those who would lose faith in us, because Kenyans are tired of corruption in one sense. It's a paradox, because we love corruption, but we hate it at the same time. So the Kenyans who hate corruption are looking towards something being done. And so when they don't see any significant progress in this fight, they lose faith, they lose hope. And they have lost faith in many of government agencies. What I would want to tell them is, first of all, don't sit back and wait for something to happen. Let it start with you. Stop corrupting the police officer. Stop corrupting a government officer. Stop paying for services that you have already paid for. That is on the one hand. In other words, at a personal level, as a Kenyan, just say, I'm going to be a person of integrity. When you apply for a tender, follow the due process. If you win, you win. If you lose, you lose, whether rightly or wrongly. But you are committed. I'm not going to corrupt anybody. That's level one. Level two, be a whistleblower. One of the things that happens in Kenya is that, I want to live my life. I just want to put food on the table. And you are seeing things happening within the office. You are seeing things happening around you. And you say nothing about it. See nothing, say nothing. We want to call upon Kenyans, please do something where you are. This will help reduce our workload. Tell us what you have seen, help us with information, and help us to tackle this thing. The third level is that the people that you have put in place, like myself and others who are working in the commission, I can tell you, I started by saying, I think we have good people in the commission. I have not searched the whole house. There may be some dark corners somewhere, but this far, I think we have good people. These people are committed to doing the right thing. Help us, support us in every way that you can, so that we can fight this vice. And I can assure you, within a period of time, we are going to see this battle won. For me, I'm saying this battle, we must win in whichever way we do it. It may take a while, it may take 20 years, it may take 15 years, it may take 10 years, I don't know how long it will take, but it's a battle we cannot afford to lose. And so don't lose faith in us, support us, give us information, help us in whichever way we can, so that we can help you to win this battle. One of the things that has been very encouraging for me as a person who is in this position is the very public declaration by the president on the war against corruption. I am aware the head of the public service has been going around calling various individuals in the counties, in the government agencies, in the ministries, and telling them we are not going to tolerate corruption. That is a very positive message coming from the top. And it should send, I know Kenyans, we become cynical, and this is how we lose opportunity. This is our opportunity to take the president and his government at their word and do what we can to flush out these corrupt individuals.
Okay.
So help us to help you.
Help us to help you. Do your part is what I'm hearing. But you know also, Dr. Bishop, snitches get stitches. Anyway, that's it. 4 a.m.
We will protect you as a snitcher.
That's it for AM Live. We've had Dr. Bishop David Oginde, Chairman of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. Ilikuwa appetizer, ilikuwa tu kionjo. I'll ask him to come back. We'll address corruption in the counties, you know, the devolution of corruption, what is happening in that space, and many more topics. I imagine this is not the last time I will host him here. So in the very near future, I will invite him back to discuss more of those issues. Do reach out to us at NTV Kenya at O Burrows. Your World coming up.